Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here walking with you in God's Word. We're in Exodus chapter 17 and we've come from that narrative of rescue and provision as they have quail and manna in the camp, and God in the middle of the desert is taking care of his people. They can turn to nothing else, and that's a beautiful thing of actually wandering in the desert, that you don't have anything else. You have to rely and lean and trust upon God and him alone. As they continue this narrative, that's going to be the question. Are they going to listen? Are we going to listen in our daily walk with God? He has everything before us. He has his word before us, direction before us, provision before us. Will we listen? Will they listen? Excuse me. Exodus chapter 17. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Walk on ahead of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of your men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "For hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord. The Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation." Generation to generation. First generation being able to see coming up out of Egypt. From generation, God is putting things in place. The Passover, winning battles, being able to actually bring forth worship in these next couple chapters for the people. How do they go about that? There's order and there's structure, there's provision, there's protection from God. Will they listen? First and foremost, very important, does Moses listen? You get to see here just a little bit of animosity in the leader of Moses towards the people. What am I supposed to do with these people? They're grumbling, they're complaining, they're dramatic. Maybe did you bring us out in the desert so our children and I would die of thirst? And before it was die of hunger, and before it was just to die. We'd rather go back to Egypt and be under slavery, but there we had food and water. Questioning, but then the Lord answers. He gives direction to Moses. He gives words to Moses. He gives provision to Moses for the people. Here we get to see that Moses heeded the instruction of God, even in the midst of the quarrel that he's having with others. I think that teaches us, I think that guides us, I think that actually encounters us with a reality and truth for our day? Will we listen to God even in the midst of things happening around us? Will we go in the direction of God even though it might have the reality of relationships with others, and that might cause not just a separation, but cause some differences in those relationships? We don't look for those. We want to look to love God first and foremost, and then love others as Christ has commanded us. But the reality in amongst our world and the quarrels and the relationships, and I pray that they don't have an effect on us listening to God first and foremost, but rather being able to listen to God for the benefit of what I can do in those relationships. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Moses, for listening to God and meeting the needs of his neighbors, of his relationships that God gave him in and amongst the Israelites. Yeah, he was seriously asking, what am I to do with these people? You're supposed to be that vessel to these people, from listening to God, from seeing God's provision and granting his provision towards the people. As we walk with Moses, Moses is going to teach us great lessons. As a fallen creature, as one who is leading the people of God, will he listen? Will we listen? Will we just bask in the provision of God to be able to share the provision of God? Will we have that strong relationship with God and God alone to help us in our relationships here on earth with others? Moses listened. Thanks be to God. May we listen and say thanks be to God, because he guides us and he directs us and he provides for us and he protects us in all things as we go forth in our daily lives here on earth, honoring him, being connected to him, so that we can love others and be connected with others. And to that, what a guide, what a direction, what a provision that we have from God. I pray that today you can go throughout your day listening to God. Thank you for joining once again in God's Word, listening to God and being able to live out faith in his Word as it guides us. May this day be filled with God's love, God's provision, and us living out the great phrase that we pretty much always end with in these times. Thanks be to God. Have a blessed day.